Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I am also the festival director and program director for Something Wicked Film Festival events, and I want to join you, or I want you to. I'm so happy for you
Yeah,
to
I'm here. I'm here to talk.
be
Oh,
here.
let's talk.
I'm here to talk. The reason why I'm so flustered is because it's St. Patty's Day, or it's around St. Patty's Day, and we have a very special episode of our show this holiday season, since it is a very cult favorite film. We are going to be hitting Leprechaun today, and hope that you will enjoy our conversation about this infamous film, which has spawned way more sequels than it probably ever should have. And to
Well,
join,
I think there should be more sequels, personally. But
and if you didn't know that voice already, our special guest for this episode is Dave Watkins. He is an indie filmmaker and horror film enthusiast, and we are going to talk about Leprechaun today, and hope that you will have a great St. Patty's Day. So, uh, to get us started off today, Dave, I just want to know what are your impressions of this film? Because I can definitely tell you mine.
yes, no, I mean, I think this movie. I guess I saw it about when it came out. I think I saw it probably on video more than like. I don't remember. I don't think I saw it at the theater, but I always thought it was a lot of fun. It is kind of a it's almost like an in between like gateway horror in a way, like Critters, because it doesn't it could have, if they cut back a little bit on some of the gore and the violence. I think it could have gotten easily gotten a PG-13. But I think that it's almost like a hybrid between a horror and a comedy, where it was almost like a kid friendly, like, or I guess gateway horror, not really kid friendly, but gateway horror, where you like want like 13-year olds, I mean, to see horror, but it is horror because of the stuff they added to it later on. So
Oh, well, yeah, you know what? It's funny that you say a gateway horror, and we kind of think of this as you reference Critters, which is a film that has very, it has some gore, not nearly as much as this film does, but the gore in this film is played for laughs completely. Um,
I think Critters is fairly hilarious myself, but it's not as it doesn't push it like this, like
it doesn't push it this way as much. And of course, the second Critters was much funnier and a lot less gorier than the first one was. But and with Leprechaun, I would like to say that some of the sequels did get a lot less gory as they played up the comedy more. But this one was like that. Like the filmmakers weren't sure if they were how far to go with the gore versus how far to go with the comedy. Although we all know that they went completely bonkers with the comedy in this. And thankfully, they had Warwick Davis to play it off, because I don't think that the film would be nearly as remembered or as fun if Warwick Davis had not have been the Leprechaun.
yeah, and that's yeah, I think his performance is really and that's what drives the first six movies of the series. His Leprechaun performance, and it's he seems like he's actually having a blast doing it, really. So,
I agree. I think that he is having way more fun than everyone else in this movie, and it makes every scene that he's in much more entertaining, to say the least.
so I guess like the general plot is that I guess daughter and her dad move. Jennifer Aniston plays really the protagonist of the movie. This is right before she started to do Friends, and she was supposed to be in the sequel. There was like some negotiations, but she backed out of it because of Friends. But it's probably the better call. But I mean, I guess she may have been able to do both. I would like to see her come back for a sequel. I think at this point she could get away with it without it ruining her career.
She definitely could come back and do a reboot slash sequel. Oh my god, that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Hopefully, she's someone a friend of hers, or she's listening to this, and we would love to see her do a reboot slash sequel to this Warwick Davis. It would be hilarious.
It'd have to have her and Warwick both in there for it to work. But I think if they brought them back and they did, I don't know. I mean, I mean, I think it'd get watched at least. I think It's
Uh,
it's a hard call with this one. I know that in the first six that have Warwick Davis in them, they all kind of do this and they get more bonkers than this as they go on. But the after that, they try to do one that was like more of a horror and less comedy. There's actually no comedy in that one, and it just seemed a little stale. You know, it's not that it was bad. It just seemed like every other horror movie. I think that for this type of, I think that the comedy really it embraces it. I think when it embraces the comedy with this Leprechaun concept, I think it works better. Not that it can't be scary, but
You know what? I agree with you on that because you're right. I think it was Origins. I think the Origins is one that went straight for horror. Because I'm trying to remember all the sequels. But it lacked that fun, that entertaining value that these earlier films had. By no means these sequels are any good, but the hell if they're not entertaining. And the thing is about the first film is it may not have the same level of comedy as the later films does, but it does go a little bit further in terms of the gore, which sets it apart from the other films. And a great reference is both the Critters or even Gremlins. The first film
yeah.
in both franchises is much darker than the sequels became, because they didn't realize how far to go with how dark it could be, which is a testament to the filmmakers. I mean, it's actually great that they don't know how far to go because some of those darker aspects are what makes the film enduring for future generations. At least that's in my opinion. I love
Right. And
I love Gremlins and I love Critters. So
sure, yeah, for sure. You know, both of them I've watched 100 times. We'll probably get 10 at least, I would say. That's not exaggerating. So, but yeah. But I think with and this one though, I was listening to some of the information on the director's commentary. The director was Mark Jones, who before doing this, he was more involved with television, mostly cartoons, which if you watch the movie, it makes sense because it is kind of like a live action cartoon in some aspects. Um, the producers I think it was maybe Trimark, they didn't want to hire him. They liked his script, but they wanted to get a different director. But he was able to convince them to let him give him a shot at it. That he showed them some storyboards he had created, and they liked what they saw. And then I guess they had a deal where if they didn't like the dailies 2 days in a row, they were going to get another director. So it was a lot of pressure. Yeah.
wow.
So he was, so I guess, I mean, that's kind of luckily it worked out well for him. And, I think that, they did like what they saw. They ended up, when it was done, they wanted more of a horror movie and, and less of what it ended up being, even though it ended up being very successful for them in the long run. But when they saw they kept making him go back and add stuff to it, there's like this long extended cop scene. The cop gets pulled over. The cop pulls him over, which is hilarious. And then in the original version, he just kills him. In this one, and then the one that's released, he chases the cop through the woods for like a ridiculous long time before he kills him. It's like, but you gotta love it. So that's when like those producers get involved, and then they actually add like sometimes they add good stuff, but in this that didn't help.
You bring up an aspect of the film that I actually enjoyed when I rewatched it. I enjoyed the fact that Warwick Davis enjoys his killing spree. I think that's one of the things that sets it apart from other like slasher movies. He has fun killing people. I actually forgot about that. The guy where he kills with the pogo stick.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, I'll be back, and then he goes to get the pogo stick to kill him with the pogo stick. And of
sure.
course, you mentioned the cop scene, which I had forgotten how long it was until I watched it. You were right; it is like long.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be different if the cop survived it and ended up like meeting back up or something. But it's like the whole thing is just he chases the cop through the woods, and it's pretty obvious he's going to kill him. It'd be different if it was like an established character, but it's I don't know. But it's still
Uh,
fun that he's chasing him and he's enjoying it, like you said, and he even like enjoys it when he gets hurt himself. Like he misses, he's trying to hit somebody and he misses and he hits his hand on he gets his hand fried on the in the stove, and he turns around and says some kind of like line with a big grin on his face.
Well, Warwick Davis has a lot of great
Yeah,
I won't say great. They're funny lines in the movie as a leprechaun. And and like the thing is, I kind of noticed his opening little monologue and his closing monologue for the film, in which he kind of gives the audience his little tidbit about his credo. First he says, "If you steal my gold, more or less." I'm not quoting. You steal my
yeah,
gold, you'll endure my wrath. And of course, the ending is he'll always be back for his
yeah,
gold.
yeah. It definitely needs to come back for sure. But
Now,
yeah, I mean that's like you know him. Yeah, he gets his gold stolen. So I guess the guy that shows up at the house to begin with has stolen his gold, and he shows up and kills his wife. And he the original guy who is it was Dan O'Grady's the character's name, but he's only in the beginning and briefly later. But he's able to immobilize him by hitting him with like a 4-leaf clover. That was something the director really liked. That idea, it was almost like he felt it was like a crucifix for this character. But they it only happens in this movie.
yeah.
In the other Leprechaun movies, I guess they figured it was just we get rid of that. You know.
So, for for our audience members who have not been lucky enough to see Leprechaun, uh, Dave has mentioned the fact that this lucky guy O'Grady finds captures the leprechaun, gets his pot of gold, and then he tries to get rich off of it. Only the leprechaun finds out where he is. He has a stroke, and then years later this gold is found by some kids and new owners of O'Grady's farm.
Well,
Um,
the characters are actually like with Jennifer Aniston's character and her dad, and then these other three characters who I guess they're there to help remodel the house, and it's kind of an interesting and comes from the director's cartoon like the cartoon background because he has a like Jennifer Aniston who looks like Jennifer Aniston obviously, and then she's got the kind of the hunky guy, and then there's a kid, and there's a kind of a bigger guy who's played by Mark Holton, who's in Pee Wee's Big Adventure, played Francis in that. If anyone's ever seen that, the guy who steals his bike. But he plays he's a mentally disabled character who's kind of childlike, and he actually is in the character returns in one of the later movies in the Leprechaun Returns movie they did recently. Did you see that?
I have not seen the newest one. I've seen them all up until the newest one.
Well, the newest one is a direct sequel to this one, not done by the same director, but it does have Mark Holton in it again,
Oh,
playing the same character. But anyway, I like the way the characters play. Him and the kid are kind of friends because he's an adult, but he's childlike, so they kind of like get along really well. And they're the ones who discover the gold, and then they try to hide it, like kids would do. And then and then since they're for like half the movie, they kind of make it so nobody sees the leprechaun except for the mentally challenged guy. Nobody believes him. They just think he's just like, So they did that for about half the movie where like, and then they end up going into town. Like the leprechaun eats her dad's hand off, and then they bring him to the hospital. He thinks he got eaten off by some kind of animal, but so we never see him again after that. They bring him, drop him off at the hospital,
that was
and
it.
then yeah, then they come back. Right? But while they're gone, though, they go into town and then they go to a diner, and then the kid and the Aussie character go into a shop and try to sell gold coin to somebody or have him look at it, and then they leave it with the guy, and that's the guy that gets killed with a pogo stick. But there is like a kind of a break because you start in the house, you go into town, and then they come back to the house, and then they end up going back into town again in a hilarious way. Because while they go back, I mean, they come back, and then when they come back after they go into town the first time, that's when they start to realize the leprechaun's real. He starts attacking them, and it becomes a siege situation where they're all trapped in the house. The hunky guy gets like yeah, but he falls. And this is kind of funny because he falls and lands in a bear trap, and it goes around his leg, and they're able to get him out of it, but he's really hurt the rest of the time. and he does a good job acting like he's hurt. The actor never forgets that he's got a bear trap like wound around his legs. I give him that. But the hilarious part is they try to leave. The original the painter's truck is not working. The Leprechaun's in the engine. He's got the distributor cap. They can't. And then he ends up going and getting like a go-kart. This is something else hilarious that he does. He keeps riding things like a pogo stick. But he gets his like Mad Max looking go-kart out and drives and runs it into the side of the truck and then flips it over. It's like, where did that come from? But I guess where I'm going with this is the hilarious thing is like, so all that happens. They go back inside and then they have a discussion about the original homeowner. And then they determine that one of the characters says he's in the old people's home in town, and he'll know what to do. And so then suddenly I know we need to go to the Jeep, and I'm like, you guys forgot about the Jeep? It's been like 20 minutes. This guy's leg he's got like and then like they forgot about the Jeep being okay to drive. But then so they go and they track the Leprechaun, and she gets in the Jeep and drives off. Doesn't take the guy with the injured leg with her to go to the hospital. But then she goes to the old, the retirement home. The Leprechaun hitches a ride, and then but it's just funny to me that they forgot about the Jeep, and then when she goes into town, she doesn't take the guy to the hospital.
You know what? I just noticed that on this last watch of the movie, which is why I'm over here laughing, because I don't think I've ever noticed that.
Yeah,
Because I don't think I ever noticed how often they leave the farm.
yeah. Well, they leave it twice, really. But I remember, like, the first time I saw it, it was kind of a relief because it breaks the movie up. But if you think about the logic behind it, it doesn't make sense. It's
Well, the thing is, it could have been a low budget horror movie that stayed in one location, but they opened it up when they left it to go into town and venture off into other locations, like the pawn shop guy who's trying to sell the coin, or the appraiser,
yeah,
or the hospital, the old folks home where they go see O'Grady again, who the leprechaun mask as, which
yeah.
is quite funny.
Right. I like those scenes. I do enjoy them, and I think that it does help open the movie up instead of you feeling like you're trapped on the farm and that's the movie. But just to me, it's just hilarious. I'm fine with it anyway. It's just hilarious to me, the logic behind like leaving us, like, and then the guy's like, oh, you forgot to bring the guy to the hospital. Can you imagine having a bear trap around your leg?
So that brings us a good point about the film. There is a lot of lack of logic that goes on in this movie, but does that distract from your enjoyment of the movie, or does it adds to it? Because the thing about it, and I only noticed it this last screening because I noticed why the hell they didn't take the as you call him, the hunky guy to the
I
hospital.
don't know if I'd really. I'm saying that's how he was designed. I guess he's kind of like the Fred from Scooby Doo, just maybe more like kind of in between Fred and Sam from Supernatural. I guess is how I would describe him.
But there are a lot of great movies from the 70s and 80s that have a complete lack of logic, but yet we still enjoy them. This movie is from the 90s, where we got a lot of less than classic films. And this one has that lack of logic as well. But I think because it's a movie about a freaking leprechaun, we kind of forgive those type of things. What do you
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, I don't have a. I'm just pointing it out. I don't personally have a problem with it. I'm just pointing it out because to me it's funny. It's like it's funny that they forgot to help the guy. Say, but at the same time, I guess if you could come up with like some logic behind it. But to me, it's funny that they forgot about the Jeep. But I guess maybe at the same time you could think they got scared because the leprechaun flipped their other car over. Maybe they thought that they went out and tried to use that one, it wouldn't work. But it's just like the scene where they remember the Jeep. There's like an epiphany. It's like, oh, the Jeep,
Well, the other
I
thing,
think it's hilarious. So
well, it's hilarious, but it's also hilarious that they keep shooting the leprechaun over and over and over again. Like,
right.
Leprechaun gets Warwick Davis gets shot a lot in this movie, surprisingly,
But
and he
but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would think if I had a gun and I was in that situation, it does seem to immobilize him briefly when it happens. You know, so there's like one time they shoot him and he's like laying on the ground for so they can get away. But I think it's kind of interesting. That's an interesting point too. I was thinking about this Leprechaun character in general because he does seem to be invincible except for the four leaf clover. It's like they do all kinds of like crazy stuff to him, and they cut off his hand, and then his hand's like the Evil Dead hand, and it crawls up the door, his hand. But it's like yeah, but they and then they kill him, they shoot him, and just keeps coming back, But he's like a supernatural like I don't know. In a way, that's yeah, I guess because it's mixed with the comedy, it helps that a lot. But it's pretty overwhelming if you're in that situation where you can't do anything about it.
well, and also
Like, yeah,
Warwick Davis is don't get me wrong, I always don't know the terms for this, but he's a little person. So the leprechaun in and of itself is someone where a lot of people would think just kick him. And they
yeah,
kick him in this movie a
yeah,
lot. They hit him a lot, and yet he
yeah.
keeps on coming back.
But
So
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like the as far with Chucky, he does come back to and from impossible type of situations, but you could in some certain situations he could be immobilized differently than this. But this character, you shoot him like I guess you could shoot Chucky too, but at the same time, it's like there's less of it because you see that he's supernatural, obviously, and then they do all kinds of crazy stuff to him. He just keeps coming back. I don't know. I mean, but the fact that he is small, it makes it like not scary. If you were thinking, it makes it not scary as a viewer. But if you were in that situation and something small, I mean, even though but something small is not scary. You kick it, but then it keeps coming back. And you only have a certain amount of like, as a human, you're only be able to withstand that for so long before before you're going to fall asleep or whatever, and he would come up through the floor and get you. Like he can come through the floor. He does it at once.
well, the leprechaun in this movie is very resilient, and he just keeps coming and coming and coming. But bring up a valid point of that actually, there's certain aspects of the movie that still retain some of its horror aspects before it goes full on comedy. The very first third of the movie, when they're keeping the leprechaun in the dark, especially the scenes with O'Grady and of course O'Grady's wife, who's the leprechaun. I think that's the first person that dies.
Right, right, yeah.
Wife. The leprechaun is kept in the dark. You don't see him you don't see him readily as much. You just hear his Warwick Davis's funny voice.
Yeah, well, it doesn't come off like the first, like you're saying, the first maybe 30 minutes. It doesn't come off like the comedy aspect, or it's almost like Looney Tunes once it starts in to a certain degree, But it does start off fairly straightforward. There's some like art design, some like set design that like the house is pretty bright. The characters' clothing, they're very bright. Like her dad has a really bright orange shirt on, and like the Ozzy character has some overalls and a red shirt, and the main guy has like a purple shirt on, like a button up. So it's like all that kind of has some like different type of feel to it, where it kind of is a bright colors, like cartoon like, but the movie's also a lot of it takes place at night, so it's kind of hard to make something at night look like a cartoon.
You bring up something I I hadn't really thought about is the Looney Tunes aspects of it, and you are absolutely right in terms of even in terms of most of the death scenes, they are very much like a Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, that might be why I enjoyed the first film as much as I did. I still think this one's better than all the rest of them, even though there are a lot of people who love the third one. Um, they,
I think this one's different than the other ones, and
yeah,
I think it is a better film too. But it is different. All the other ones, they're directed by had different directors on them, and yeah. But it is like this one's really the only one that does the gateway horror. The other ones are, definitely geared towards I guess like at least the teens. But there's like this one's also like you see some in some of the other ones they do have like you say like in the hood they have drug use, and a lot of the other ones they will have like sexualization of women more often. Where this one's not really like that. It plays it fairly classy. Not that there's nothing wrong with the other parts. I think it's funny too, but it does keep it like almost like it could be a family type of movie
Mm.
with the characters. And you don't see like Jennifer Aniston's character. She has some tight shorts on, but she's not really sexualized in the movie so much.
That's actually very interesting. You're absolutely right. That it could be, it could be one of those type of early gateway films like Critters or Gremlins in terms of that. It just was a few years too late. Uh, and I wonder if the filmmakers were specifically going for that type of feel. Um, I mean, people remember Gremlins, like Gremlins and Critters for those reasons. They're darker than
Right,
people remembered them being, kind of like Labyrinth or The Dark Crystal. You think
right,
for kids, but they're for like
right.
that little gateway for kids. They're a little darker than kids' movies. But kids enjoyed them. I enjoyed the hell out of Gremlins when I first saw it as a kid. I know I was a kid when I saw that. Uh,
Right, yeah, yeah. And it's things go over your head, I guess, as a kid, even though I guess kids are really you're picking it up to a certain degree, like Gremlin's old lady in the wheelchair goes flying out the window. People are getting killed and then people are getting killed in Critters, but it's not as I mean,
Violence.
yeah, it's not as violent or like the lady like have a character you don't like, the lady in the wheelchair, who's the kind of Scrooge lady, her getting killed, it's kind of like a laugh, they don't kill people for emotional like reasons most of the time, other than to kill somebody. They've set them up to be a bad person, so it's okay when they die. But
Oh
here,
my.
but here that's another thing about this movie is that the director like didn't kill any of the main characters.
Mm.
Yeah, but he hurt them pretty bad, some of them, but he just seems like he kept them all alive. Where he didn't even kill the dad. So I don't know. He kills some of the one-off scene characters. He kills a bunch of them. Like guys, people who have two scenes, but he seems like he really liked the characters and didn't want to kill them. It almost seems like that way.
It would be interesting to know how if these secondary characters were killed because the director made a safer film and and the distributor wanted something a little bit more violent.
Well, yeah, but I did listen to his commentary. He kind of said it wasn't like that. These type of things were added. I guess they were in there initially, but they kept adding like every death scene. They wanted more. They made them go back and either reshoot them or like shoot
Oh,
some more inserts. Like the pogo scene stick, originally didn't have the close up inserts when he jumps on them for like a real long time. So it's which is pretty brutal, really. Like that part,
yeah.
you're watching it. He's like, it's kind of hard to, even though it's just like the insert's just a dummy, and he's just pogoing on top of it. Yeah,
Oh my God. Oh my God. Now because we've mentioned some of the other stuff already, in terms of the why this franchise has endured as long as it has. Uh, can you give me your insight for the reason I mean, you said how many sequels are there now in this
but
franchise?
there's eight total, and they're talking about making another one, which I'd like to see Jennifer Aniston and Warwick Davis return for, by the way. So,
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's about. I mean, that's as bad as if this was like a full moon entertainment franchise where they just keep chucking out sequels for no apparent reason. Uh,
well, and they are like the first two were theatrical releases. After that, they were all like released to video on demand or. So I think at the time, and that was kind of the thing is see the first movie was the budget was about $1 million. They made about 8 million. It's a pretty good profit. So they liked that, So they put out the money to make the second one. The second one didn't do as good. So, but at the same time, it had gained a cold audience from the first one, and that's why they were able to release them direct to DVD, which was a big deal at the time when the third
Yeah.
one was coming out, So, and that was how they were able to make the other ones because of that market and the demand for that type of content on DVD. And then the Origins one, which came out recently, it's more of a they were like, what if we did it like a horror movie instead of like a horror comedy? And then so that one was kind of, I think it had a small theatrical release, but it was mostly released to video on demand, and
Yeah.
maybe I think it played it on Sci-Fi or something of that nature. But I guess it did okay. I'm not sure how those numbers added up. But then, and I guess the returns one, they can't return back to the comedy horror. I guess just because they know there is a built-in cult audience, but for nostalgic reasons. But of course, they weren't able to get Warwick Davis back for that one, unfortunately. And
No.
yeah, and the reason being is that Warwick Davis said after the sixth one, he had kids, and he didn't feel like being in a horror movie was appropriate. So when he did Harry
Oh,
Potter and all
interesting.
that, which Harry Potter worked out a lot better for him anyway, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
but 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 he said like now there was a recent interview with him where he did mention that he might be more inclined to return now that his son's older. So it would be nice to see him back in another one. So.
Yeah, they'll hire the filmmakers from the recent Halloween trilogy and The Exorcist to come back and do a whole new trilogy featuring actors from the original movie. It'll be great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no, but I don't even know if it's kind of interesting. I think there's some people who were talking about doing it. One guy, I don't remember his name now, but it seems like they moved on to a different director now. But he had the idea was to make it like another sequel, and to kind of had to have it the comedy be kind of in between the original one and Back to the Hood comedy. So it's kind of like still the Back to the Hood becomes completely bonkers, which is pretty awesome. Still, it's one of the to me that's one of the better ones. Not not In the Hood, even though it's got Ice-T in it, but Back to the Hood, it's that's
That one did go bonkers.
yeah,
I didn't see that one when they originally came out. I actually saw that when I bought all of them. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
I bought them all and finally caught up with them. I hadn't seen the last two, and then this was around when Origins came out. So I said, damn it,
Yeah.
I'll watch Origins because I haven't seen the other ones before it. So I went off, bought them all, watched them all, and realized how really bonkers they got.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing happened between the first one and the second one, where I think everything would have been different had the original director came back for the second one. It could have even been a Child's Play situation where that director is, with the exception of the remake, he's retained like continuity with all the movies, but it was going to be a direct sequel to the first one. The original director was trying to get Jennifer Aniston, didn't work out, but the reason he ended up not doing he was listed as a producer, but he was making another movie called Rumpelstiltskin, and
Yeah.
so he said, okay, I guess I want to make this movie, you guys go for it. And so I guess he just kind of lost the ability to direct any further ones after that, unfortunately. I don't think Rumpelstiltskin did very well. He definitely was hoping for a franchise out of that, and it didn't happen. So I've never
Yeah.
seen that movie though.
Oh, you
Have you
haven't, I'm
seen it?
surprised you
No,
haven't seen that one.
yeah. I don't know. It
Yeah.
didn't really appeal to me, but I don't know.
Oh, well, it's funny because the only reason why I saw it is because the guy who directed Leprechaun did it. So I always gotta be just like Leprechaun, just without Warwick Davis.
Yeah,
It's not as fun. It is definitely missing that Warwick Davis type of actor that kind of sells it. I think the only reason why there was a franchise is because of Warwick Davis. He
yeah.
sells the ridiculousness of this franchise.
I feel like if they had the right actor play Rumpelstiltskin, it probably would have succeeded. If they had the right person in that. You ever see that Once Upon a Time show
Oh,
with
yeah, what's it?
that Robert
Robert
Carlyle?
Carlyle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's awesome. If they had like someone like that playing Rumpelstiltskin in the Rumpelstiltskin movie, it probably would have done better, maybe. But I don't know. I hadn't seen the movie, so I don't know. But I do know I didn't recognize the actor's name, so it's not Warwick Davis. You know.
It's not nearly as fun. These type of high concept films that rely on audiences' ability of suspension of disbelief in terms of the mythological characters depicted, whether it's Rumpelstiltskin or a leprechaun, has to have someone in it like Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, Warwick Davis as the leprechaun. It has to have that actor that can just sell it because
Sure, sure,
it's
yeah,
crazy already. Uh,
sure.
you know,
Yeah, and they gotta. Yeah, it's just for it to work. Yeah, it has to have that high energy. Like you say, Michael Keaton. That's a good. That's a good. Um, yeah, that seems similar to the energy that he does as the Leprechaun. It's there's more of a sexual energy coming from Michael Keaton, the Beetlejuice, but you never get that from the Leprechaun. He just wants to kill people and get his gold back. So
he just wants his gold back. At least that's what the Warwick Davis films are. To be honest with you, I liked Origins. I don't remember the plot or anything of Origins whatsoever. I remember enjoying it when I saw it. That's all I
sure,
could.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I don't think it was good though. I mean, it was definitely like a that's the problem with that one is you just don't remember it. That's the weird thing. I think of sometimes some of these movies like you see like they have so many sequels, and I sat there and watched like there's three Mimic movies, so I didn't even
Uh,
know. But I sat there and watched the first one. I remember the first one really well. I saw it in the theater, but then I watched the other two, and then after I watched them, like I'm like, what happened? I don't remember. It's like, I know like the third one was like a rear window like
yeah.
rip off, but it was kind of an interesting idea. Lance Hankerson was in it, but the weird thing is like I can hardly remember the second one at all, and I sat there and just watched it. Like I think that's the problem with binge watching is I used to like be more of a fan of it, but I feel that it's almost like you watch it and then you forget it sometimes, and it's like for me anyway, I used to remember stuff really well, but it's like I feel like I just got to see what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. Okay, cool. I got my fix. And then, wait a minute, what happened now?
You bring up an actually interesting predicament with binge watching. I will agree with you. I did the same thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise and the Bad 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 Friday 13th. I did that because I was gonna prep myself for the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out on Netflix, and I couldn't remember anything from the other one, so I binge watched them, and then right after I was done binge watching them, I forgot what half of them were about.
Right. And it's weird too. Yeah, I mean, it's like I always remember the first one pretty good, but then it's like
Yeah.
there's always like, I've seen the second one of that one, but I can even remember the third one, but I think that and there's the remake and some of the ones Next Generation, but then some of the ones after that I hadn't seen, and I can imagine that if you said they watched all of them, even the ones after the
Yes.
Next Generation, it was
But the thing is, I
even
I
you watch the Next Generation. I don't think I've ever made it through that one. So, or,
I saw that one in the theater. I was the one of only three people who saw it when it was called Texas Chainsaw. The original title was not The Next Generation. I think it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Returns or something. I saw it under its original title. It was god awful then. They didn't approve it when they took it off the shelf and then re-released it again. It was horrible then. It's still horrible now. I don't remember anything that happened in it other than it was horrible.
yeah. Oh, I think sometimes when like binge watching is like when if you watch them separately, like apart from each other, you probably remember them more, I would think. But I mean, too, like with binge watching something like this, and the continuity is just not there. It's hard to handle to a certain degree. If you've
Ah,
got that continuity mind where you're thinking they need to connect, and then they don't, you can watch the Child's Play movies and they do, but this is yeah. I mean, was it Leprechaun and Leprechaun Regular and Leprechaun 2? I guess it still kind of goes, and then the three is the
wait.
two's in Las Vegas, right? And then
I thought it was the third one that was in Las Vegas.
oh yeah,
See, that's the thing is I don't remember anymore.
it
Uh,
must be. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the third one's the one you're saying. Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, it does seem to end up on some list for that one of being pretty high on the list. For some reason, I think like some people think that's the one that they got right. But I don't know. I've always thought I don't know. I thought the first one was better, and in space is pretty entertaining, but it's an alien ripoff, and but the
yes.
Leprechaun, yeah, but They did Jason in space was better than Leprechaun in space.
You talk about they also have what was it critters in space as well. This whole fourth film with in space seemed to be
But
something that was a trend for
yeah,
a while.
but critters in space makes sense because critters came from space. It's like there's always been space aspects to it. But I mean, I guess it's like yeah, I mean, but at the same time, they do have the fourth one in space when no budget. The one they need the biggest budget for, they don't have a budget. So it's
Oh
like,
my god. But yeah, I think you're right. I think these some of these franchises that lack continuity, if you binge watch them, I think you do they all just blur sometimes. I didn't even think about that till now. That's interesting. I
I'm
don't
still trying to I'm trying to remember what's up with that second one now. I've watched it a few times, but it's like
I don't remember anything about the second one. Holy crap.
I think I remember like it's like a younger guy, like a teenager, maybe 20, and then he's hanging out with like an older guy, and then the older guy ends up having the gold like come out of his stomach in one of the later scenes. I don't
Huh.
remember the location of it or anything, but
Nah, the DVD just says some big city. Maybe I'll have to watch that one. I'll have to at some point. I guess I'll have to binge watch these movies again, and I'll forget everything about them again.
yeah.
Uh, the last time I watched all of them was when Origins came out. Like I said, I hadn't seen some of them, so I got them all, watched them right after I saw Origins. I saw Origins first, and then went back and watched them all.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm gonna watch another one for St. Patrick's Day. I haven't decided which one yet, but I might watch. I don't know. I have to figure out which one I'm gonna watch. I might watch two of them. Well,
I know.
I probably will watch two. I think it's another thing is like sometimes I'll watch them. I'm like kind of buzzed when I'm watching them, and so like I don't remember them that good. Because watch them on St. Patrick's Day, and it's like let's put one of these things on.
Now that you mentioned this, the Leprechaun movies probably would make a perfect triple feature on St. Patty's Day. So you
Yeah,
can drink and have fun and be entertaining throughout. At least for the first three, I could probably do that. The in space one when they do the giant fucking Warwick Davis, just I think that was where it jumped the shark for me.
yeah. I guess you can probably skip it. I used to think in space used to be my favorite, but now I have a harder time with it. I don't know. It's just so ridiculous.
It
And
is
then
ridiculous.
then there's like that one dude that's like part of the ship. He's like part like android or something, and
Oh
then
my god.
turns him into a spider, and it's like it's
So I guess for our audiences out there, we may have to do a watch another Leprechaun movie in space or the Vegas one at some point.
yeah.
Any while we're getting in here, I want to ask you: are there any final thoughts about the movie Leprechaun that you would like to leave our audience with on this St. Patty's Day?
I think that yeah, one scene it's like that's in the movie that the producers didn't like was that the director was able to keep is and this happens in some of the other movies where the leprechaun really likes shoes, and so they have a bunch of shoes and they throw them into the woods, and he has to go and run and shine them and sort of shine in the shoes. And I think that's a good. I mean, you have a horror villain. It's good to have something that you're able to either stop him or delay him with, and it's good to have those type of things, even though it's completely silly. Like in, I think one of the other ones they have like a he has to count stuff. Like they have some straws or something they throw on the ground, and he has to count them, which helps them get away. So I mean, it's good to have like those things so you can get away from them. So otherwise, the movie would be a lot shorter. Yeah, it's Leprechaun would have killed them all.
Well, I have to say that the movie would have been a lot shorter if they hadn't extended the death of the police officer.
And then they
Oh,
didn't even after all that extension of it, all he did was break his neck. It's just like really you're gonna do all that, and then you're just gonna break his neck after 5 minutes of running through the woods.
oh Jesus. Well, with that, I want to thank you, Dave, for joining me on this conversation on horror, where we talked about the movie Leprechaun for St. Patty's Day. I hope everyone out there had a lot of fun listening to us. And if you have never seen Leprechaun, please go out there and check it out. But beware that you probably should be either drunk or high to enjoy the hell out of this movie, because what you get is pretty much what you get from the box cover.
Well, you shouldn't have that mindset. I don't know if you actually have to get drunk or high. You just have to have that mindset. I mean, if you've done it before, you know what the mindset is. Just get there and then watch it.
Yes. Though I can enjoy anything with Warwick Davis, to be honest with you. And he makes films a lot more entertaining when he's on the screen because he seems to be able to jump in and out of genres and characters like it's easy. um, but Leprechaun, you should definitely check it out if you haven't. Especially at least the first movie. There are 8 movies in the franchise, and maybe one day we'll get around to them. But I want to thank you all for joining us on Conversations in Horror. I want to thank Dave for joining us, and we will definitely have more Leprechaun in the future. So please check us out. There are plenty of other episodes out there that we've done on a lot of great cult and classic films, and we have a lot coming up. So please subscribe. Make sure to check out what we have in store for you, and everyone out there, have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.